Now, I've taken a number of my slides out of a much longer talk, but I left this title in, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, because when you're talking about female hormones, some of them are brilliant, some of them are cancer protective, some of them are not very good. They tend to be the ones that doctors use. And then there's the ugly ones that nobody uses. So we have 3 different estrogens in our body. So that's why I've got that title there. But what we're aiming for is happy women right through life. And unfortunately, life is not always that way for women. And when we go through around 50 menopause, we have a time, about 5 years sometimes, which is very up and down for many women. And you'll hear quite a number of the stories tonight. But my job is to tell you a little bit about the science of what's going on in this area. So when people think about menopause, they think about 5 major symptoms, generally speaking. And you can read them yourself. Hot flushes, we say in America, they say hot flashes. Night sweats, irregular periods, that can be really disconcerting because you don't know if you're pregnant or what's happening. Loss of libido, that is always a real worry to both men and women, of course. And sex could become difficult. You get dryness in the vagina. And those are the common symptoms that lots of women complain of. But, as they say, wait, there's more. Because there are many other things that can happen. And I've just put up 40 of the common ones. Now there are others. You can probably make a list of 100 things. But just this week, a lady came to see me who's been to see 4 doctors. She's been to see the practice nurse. She was sent to the psychiatrist. And she came to me saying, nobody can help me. Here are all her symptoms. She thought she was going crazy. She's got itchy skin. She's finding her weight is fluctuating. She's still having periods, but they become every 10 days, which is not very good. And she talks about depression, lack of focus, difficulty with sleep. And can you people at the back read that list? Because I don't want to read it all. Romy, can you read those things? You know, a lot of these things. And itchy, crawly skin is a horrible symptom. And it's a very real one. And doctors look at it and they say, well, I don't know what it is. Hi, come on in. There's actually some seats here. So, lots and lots of things. Digestion goes all wrong too. And then there's the problem with hair growth. Hair falling out of the head, but growing in other places. It's true and it's scary. And people wonder what on earth is going to go on. But then you can get bleeding from your gums, you can get a sore mouth, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I had another, one of my friends down in Topol, who said, when she saw this when I did my talk last week, she said, oh, ringing in the ears. I didn't know that could be associated with menopause. And she's so relieved because she's been to 2 different specialists as well as doctors to try and sort that out. And the answer, of course, for all these sort of things is deal with the problem. So that's what we're going to talk about. So, and Jerry, my husband, who most of you know, is a cardiologist, and he says, you know the most worrying thing for most women? They think they're having a heart attack because they get this thumping, jumping in the chest, they get palpitations, they wake up at night feeling quite panicky, they don't know what's going on, they think they're having a heart attack. They're not, they've got menopause. So that is a worrying thing, and many, many women take their own pulse, can't quite understand what's going on. One of the things that really accelerates at this point in life, we're talking 45, 50, that sort of time, is what's going on in the bones. We start to actually lose calcium and minerals out of our bones way back as teenagers, especially if we're not eating right. It's one of the important things. You need to eat calcium, magnesium, vitamin D supplements, get out in the sun to protect those bones. But at menopause time, it speeds up. And we end up with this rather holy looking bones, and it causes a lot of the deformities that you see in people as they get older. Now, I was quite interested in this picture because since I've been taking USANA products, I've actually grown 1.5 inches. I've got 3 daughters and they're all taller than me, and they think that's really quite hilarious. But when you look at this picture, most people shrink as the back gets more and more rounded. So you young ones, if you want nice straight backs, keep your head up, keep your posture good, but you need to do something about it long before your bones start to cause trouble like this. Now, all of these symptoms that we've been talking about, the culprit is that whole group of things we call hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers in the body. They make all sorts of things happen for us. And I've been lecturing and talking and writing about this area for what, 40 years now? Really since the pill and HRT were invented. And they were invented back in 1974. And a lot of people were saying, wow, that's amazing. Now we're going to be able to control when we have babies and all the things we want to do in our lives. And 1 or 2 of us were saying, hang on, we're going to be in trouble. And when I was a young doctor, and you know I'm in my 4th quarter, the slippery slope as they call it, when I was a young doctor, the problem for those people was they weren't able to stop getting pregnant. You only slept with your boyfriend once and you were pregnant. And people were very, very fertile. It was really scary. And so then we came with all these wonderful hormones and we were going to be able to fix all that. But we forgot that we hadn't got a way to destroy these hormones when we pop them in our mouths or put them on our skin. So as the time has gone on since those 1970s, things have got a lot worse. And we're just going to run through some of those quickly tonight. There's a lot of foods that are hormonally active. And we have to watch for that. We know plastics are a real curse all around the world, but they also are hormonally active. Toxic things of all sorts, chemicals, makeup, skincare, cosmetics, all those things affect our hormones, and especially stress. And we're not going to talk about stress tonight. That should be the topic of a whole talk on its own. So I've just put some pictures up to remind us. Chicken. If you are not buying free-range chicken and organic if you can afford it, you are doing your families a big disservice. I went to a dinner party in Christchurch some years ago now, and I was told to behave myself because the owner of the biggest chicken factory in the South Island was going to be there. A well-known make, I shan't mention what its name is, and so I promised to keep my mouth shut. In the middle of dinner, 12 people sitting around the table, this woman, and it is a woman, leant across the table to me with a hand out like this, and she said, you know your size 18 chicken? How old do you think it is? And I thought, Monica, and I said, oh, I don't know, it can't be very old. Oh, it must be quite old if it's that big. And she said, very proudly, 37 days. How long is that? It's 6 weeks. A size 18 chicken is 6 weeks old. Now you think of a 6-week-old barnyard chicken, it still would easily sit on your cupped hand, it's small. And somebody said, well, how do you do that? Or she said, lots of light, lots of more food. And she said, we give it a few things to help it grow. And then somebody said, but it says on your chickens, no added hormones. Oh yes, she said, but we don't put hormones in for the last 10 days of the chicken's life. But until that point, we're allowed to use hormones. So no added hormones means no hormones. You can use them for the first 27 days, but no hormones for those last 10 days. Now, labeling can be really treacherous. And it's not on topic, but I just want to mention it. So when you pick up a bottle of fish oil and it says mercury tested, it does not mean mercury removed. It's only been tested. Okay, just remember that. So, chicken is really important. We're lucky with our beef. We feed it grass. In the States, it's corn-fed, and again, hormones come in there. Plastics. These bottles really do leach bad estrogens into our environment, into our water, which is why you do not want to use these plastic bottles over and over and over. And you'll notice that Usana and other companies that make good bottles don't choose that. I put cows up there because they're actually quite safe in New Zealand. But you've also got to think about what you put on your skin, under your arms, men and women. All the things we're putting on our bodies, many of them are hormonal. And we know, of course, and we're not talking about it tonight, that these toxins also cause cancers. Many of the cancers are hormonal, like breast cancer, cervical cancer, testicular cancer, cancers for both men and women, but all the other cancers as well. So we've got to watch our foods, pesticides, preservatives, deodorants, our cookware. Have you thought about your Teflon saucepans and things? Smoke, we know, pollution, asbestos cleaners, all of these things are hormonal. And the trouble is, many of them, we don't have a way to get them out of the body. Once they're there, they're stuck. Now, the situation is probably quite bad for me. But if you're younger than me, it's worse. And if you're younger than that, it's even worse. And if you think children now, 5, 6, 7, their future really is dire if we don't do something about it. So, watch out for deodorants. A deodorant antiperspirant isn't a good idea. You need to research that yourself. I was talking in the States, some years ago now, on the big stage, and I said to my husband, I want a slide showing some of the nasty things in skincare. And he couldn't find one, and he said, well, I found a naked lady, but you can't use her. Now, you don't say that to a redhead, and some of you who may have been there, I did use this slide in the States. And I rather like her. Women like her because she's nice, and most guys like her, right?
Yep.
Yep. Everybody happy? Yep. But just look, and you can't read it all. But I put some of the things on the side there. Lipstick has got 33 worrying chemicals. Nail polish 31. Fake tan, I used to brown my legs. After I found this slides, I've never done it since. Body lotion, 323. Do you think it might be a good idea to switch to a safer make? I think so. So it's a really interesting slide, and it lists the names of all the different chemicals. Now, very briefly, as women are premenopausal, this is the normal pattern. I've got a pointer. Yeah. Okay. This is when ovulation occurs, around about then. This is the time when a woman bleeds. And then we get this hormone, estrogen, rising to create the egg that could be fertilized. And then it comes down, but it's another little peak there. Now, in case this egg is fertilized, we need the hormone that will complete the pregnancy. So we have this hormone, progesterone, and it starts to rise about day 12, and up it goes. And if you're pregnant, whoa, it goes up 25 times normal. And generally, women love being pregnant because that hormone is the hormone of well-being. We often talk about the bloom of pregnancy, the shiny hair, the skin. The woman who's pregnant doesn't think, oh, I wonder if I'm going to have a normal baby. I wonder if I'm going to be able to give birth. I wonder if I'm going to have this happen, that happen. She's gliding along like a queen. Other people can think that about her, but not the woman. Then she has the baby, and this progesterone, which is up here, crashes down, and guess what? The feel-good hormone is suddenly gone, and we get postnatal depression. How important is that hormone? This period here, when the progesterone is falling, is when women do the things that are rather stupid, like crash the car. They're backing carefully, but they clip the back. They commit a crime. They threw the baby out of the car. They smashed their favourite hairbrush, which I did once. I threw it downstairs at my husband. And it was a very expensive hairbrush, and it smashed. And I've never forgiven myself. But that is the normal pattern. And what you see is a seesaw. Estrogen up first half, progesterone up the second half. Now, I was asked, I think Debbie asked me just before, don't the estrogens rise around menopause? Yes, they do, and they fall, and they rise, and they fall, all over the place. Is it any wonder we don't know what's going on? Is it any wonder we get confused, and we get hot flushes, and we feel that we're not coping? Because the body isn't coping. Now, because it's menopause, we're not going to produce so many eggs, so the chances of getting pregnant fall, and so we don't need so much progesterone. So here's the hormone that normally rises, should give us a good level in our fertility years, and it starts to fall. Hair loss, dry skin, itchy skin, lack of sleep, all the things that happen. This is the fall of progesterone. And then it falls ongoing, look. Never to be seen again sort of thing. You notice we have a tiny bit, but very little. But because of all the things I've been talking about and what's going on in the world, we have this raised level of estrogen, unopposed. That is dangerous. So what can we do? We can take a lot of care with how we live our lives. For a start, we need to be careful about the hormones we use. We need to look, as many doctors have done, for safer methods of delivery, and look outside the pharmacological world. I was hearing today how Bill likes to read, and Bill is always learning reading. This is an area you can read about because we need to avoid all those hormonal foods. And that's quite difficult. We need to look for those horrible 3 words, sodium lauryl sulfate. Sodium lauryl sulfate is in everything that bubbles. In your bathroom, in your laundry, in your kitchen, unless you've crawled around on the bottom of the supermarket shelves to get the Earthwise or the Echo or some of the alternatives which bubble without sodium lauryl sulfate. Parabens are preservatives. Again, hormonally active. We've got to look at alternatives to plastics, safer things. And I believe it's part of that cleaning up the world. We've got to look at living our lives with less stress, because that hormone progesterone is the hormone from which we make so many other hormones. We make cortisol, which helps us manage stress. We make our thyroid hormone, which governs our metabolism. We make testosterone, and women have to have a bit of testosterone for libido. We don't want a lot like men though. We just want a little bit, or else we get sort of in your face. And we don't want that either. So, anti-aging hormone, you'll hear more about that later. But anti-aging is another hormone that's made from progesterone. And above that, cholesterol. Cholesterol, folks, is good. So, you've got to think of all those cosmetics, all the skincare. So why do we do this when there are safer alternatives? And I think I take my hat off to USANA for the wonderful ranges they've made of body care and this super range of skincare. No sodium lauryl sulfate in those beautiful bottles. So what do doctors do? They used to use HRT, and they could give it by a pill, or a patch, or even by an implant. But they discovered it causes an increase in heart disease. Whoops, that was a bit of a disaster. Then we thought, well, perhaps we should use the other hormone. If estrogen's high, perhaps we should push the other one up. So we started using progesterone. except we weren't using progesterone because progesterone is like that jigsaw bit of Sky. It's got to be the exact piece to go in the puzzle. And progesterone, if you change it a little bit to make a patentable product, the body doesn't recognize it. And so the drug firms made Depo-Provera. It used to be injected every 3 months to do all the good things that we were hoping it would do. And women got depressed and fat and suicidal. And a lot of the older people here will remember that time. It was a bad time, wasn't it? So that was out the window. Oh, okay, so we'll move away from hormones and we'll use sleeping tablets and tranquilizers and antidepressants. Not a great idea either. Or maybe we can use bioidentical hormones. Now, those are hormones that are exactly the same as the body makes. Drug firms can't patent them, so they're made by compounding pharmacies. And they're really effective, but they may not be necessary if we do something different. And if we start using phytoestrogens, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, we probably don't need to use these expensive bioidentical hormones. We still have them up our sleeve if we need them. Doctors are beginning to wonder about this. When I started doing this work back in the 1970s, 80s, 20 doctors from around New Zealand would go to the meetings. Now it's hundreds, and naturopaths and lots of other people. So it's a movement. And the more people who talk to their doctors about these things, the better it will be. Now, it's interesting that we've got a few Asian women here. And Asian women living in Asia tend not to get menopausal symptoms. In fact, European women and New Zealanders and Australians, we look at the Asian women and think, aren't they lucky? They do so well. And what is it? Why are they so different? This is a menopausal lady. She is happy. She doesn't have any of those symptoms. She's 50 and she looks wonderful. Is it their diet? Is it the way they live? One thing they do is they eat lots of isoflavones, things like soy and various other phytoestrogens in their diet. So maybe that gives us a clue. Now, the word for the sort of estrogens that I've been talking about is xenoestrogens. They're poisonous, they're bad. And what we need to do is we want to block those strong estrogens. They're dangerous to the body, and they're all around us. We want to block them. We want to stop them getting onto the cells of our body. Because on our cells, we've got receptors. Now, this beautiful blue thing is a cell, and the little blue circles are the nasty strong estrogen that's trying to get into the receptor sites. But if we put the yellowy orange ones in, those are the phytoestrogens, they will sit in those receptor sites and they block so that the strong estrogens just can't get a foothold, if you like, into the cell. So they block the bombardment. So those are the strong estrogens, and those are the phytoestrogens. And estradiol is exactly one of those blockers. It's the perfect solution to the problems we're talking about. Is that exciting?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And to tell you more, Carolyn, please.